Hello everyone. Today I'll be discussing my opinions on an American classic film, Titanic, which is loved by many, but I rather oppose those thoughts. Titanic is the story of the ship Titanic sinking. The movie follows Rose, a Titanic survivor, telling her story to explorers who were studying the wreckage. The two lead characters are Jack Dawson, who is portrayed by Leonardo DiCaprio, and Rose DeWitt, played by Kate Winslet. Jack finds himself winning 2 tickets to the famous Titanic ship in a poker game. Shortly after the ship sets sail, Jack is out on the front deck when Rose catches Jack's eye. From that moment on, Jack was determined to meet and to get to know her. This blockbuster film from the late 1990s is widely talked about and is a piece of current pop culture. The iconic front of the boat pose, "I'm the king of the world," and of course Rose's line, "I want you to paint me like one of your French girls," has become common internet jokes and have made incredible memes. Many millennials have loved this movie as young kids and have watched it multiple times. Nowadays, it's considered to be a must-watch movie and an original romance story. Prior to watching the film, people's reviews of it had me intrigued, and of course, everyone was crushing on young Leo. At the 1988 Oscars, Titanic went on to win 11 Oscars, nominated against other popular films such as Good Will Hunting, Men in Black, My Best Friend's Wedding, and Hercules. The story arc was pretty good. Movie-wise, it wasn't the best, but overall it did its job of getting the story across and acknowledging an American tragedy. The first hour of the film was just the intro and the development between the characters. The rest was pretty interesting with the actual sinking of the ship. Within the plot, there are many possible storylines that can be ventured into. I would want a movie about Jack's adventures as an artist and more of his backstory. For the most part, Titanic didn't really live up to all the hype. Don't get me wrong, I gave it a chance, but I wouldn't watch it again. Director James Cameron was praised for paying homage to Titanic and the reproduction of the sinking. Walking away from it all, Titanic tugged on the heartstrings and emotions to create a mindset of what was going on during that tragedy. Even with all the overhype, this movie brings you back to the reason we make movies in the first place, to tell people's stories through visual storytelling. I'm Margaret Sandiego for Half Awake on Wire Raw. For this review and more, please visit wireraw.org.
Have you ever admired the delicacy and savory of a full-on, ready-to-eat avocado? Well, let me tell you, an avocado is not purely to eat, it is for so much more. Wait and see. If what you are looking for is shaped like an oval, black, and with the weird texture, then I suggest a 99-cent avocado. It has an amazing flavor that will literally knock you out. Like, quite literally. Not to mention, it is great for throwing at your annoying little siblings. Certified and tested by my sister. Of course, she won't be able to attest to that since with only 99 cents, you can enjoy a ready-to-eat avocado and possibly knock your siblings out. Don't wait. Did I forget to mention, it will even help you defend yourself from the Hulk smash. Lastly, it is quite handy to carry in your own bag. Look at her go! Phew! Take advantage of this very handy, certified self-defense tool to fill your life with joy. And remember, avocados assemble.
Hi, I'm Zuri. I'm in 10th grade and I'm from Berkeley, California.
And I'm Ryan. I'm in 9th grade and I go to school in Alameda.
You're listening to Online Talks, where we'll be discussing our own personal experience with online learning as school students. We will be talking about this today in order to share 2 different perspectives on online learning in high school and to help other high school students doing remote learning feel less alone in their experience.
So, Zuri, how has your mental health been over the course of everything?
My mental health been over the course of everything. It was like a roller coaster going up and down. It was challenging. In the beginning of online learning, it was okay, but then it started to go downhill, and then I ended up pulling through at the end. How about you?
So, I think my mental health, like you, it was pretty good at the beginning because I kind of thought of it as like an extra vacation, extra 2 weeks off of school. Then, the longer it went, the more my mental health decreased. And then I learned new hobbies and found more things to do that kept my mental health better over the course of time. And I also think that talking to my friends a lot also helped my mental health.
I agree. Did you have to do PE? And if so, what was the experience like for you?
So I did have to do PE, and the way my school did it was that we do workouts over Zoom, and then we'd have our cameras off and everything, and our teachers just like timed us on everything. And that experience was kind of weird at first, but as I continued on, I quickly grew accustomed to it, and it was just a regular thing for me. And Zuri, did you have to do PE, and what was the experience like?
I actually did have to do PE, and for me, it was good. I wasn't being that active on Zoom, but I ended up being more active to pull through for my grade. Um, and then I ended up going to school for the last semester, so I ended up doing good. And plus, I'm the most active student in my PE class, so it wasn't that hard.
So how were your grades affected, Zuri?
My grades were affected by us not having our full semesters, and my mental health, um, me being down, like when my mental health I went down, it wasn't I wasn't focused on my grades. I wasn't really worried about it. It was just like whatever. So that's how it ended up being affected. And also in the first semester, the fact that we didn't really get it was unorganized with my school, so it threw everything off. How
Right.
about you, Ryan?
So at the beginning, my grades were fine. Then they started going down a bit because I didn't manage my time properly. I procrastinated a lot, and I had to learn to not procrastinate a lot and better manage my time. And by doing that, my grades pulled through like yours, and it got better.
I agree. What did you like about online learning?
So, something I really enjoyed about online learning was the amount of free time and the amount of time you have to yourself. Like in the mornings, you don't have to wake up, prepare for school, go to school, and all that kind of things. It's really tiring to do all that and then come home. But with online learning, you just wake up, you can even take your class in bed and just vibe. What did you like about online learning, Zuri?
I liked about online learning was that I had extra time from doing my um online learning, from doing my work. I had extra time and time to find other hobbies and stuff, and I was able to get into some stuff that I like that actually helped me through online learning and that helped me through the course of COVID and staying calm. So that's something I like, and also just being able to be by myself and just take time to, have a glow up and mature a little bit and realize a lot of things.
Right.
What did you not like about online learning?
Something I did not like about online learning was the learning part in general. Learning was really hard for me during Zoom because learning new material over Zoom with like all these technical difficulties and things, and the not having the communication you'd have in person school, it made it really hard to focus, and then it made it really hard to understand certain things, which had to make me self study more and self learn more. What did you not like, Zuri?
I did not like what I did not like about online learning was the fact that I didn't get the full learning I needed to do for online learning, and everything they gave us, like our projects and stuff, it was short time and period. And we moved on so quick. Like if half of the class got it, then that means so-called the whole class got it. So we moved on to a different subject quick, and it wasn't really good for me because it takes me a cool minute to learn everything. That's one thing I didn't like about it. Another thing I didn't like about it was that um my mental health, it was not, it really it didn't do a lot of damage, but it did, and it just put me in a dark place where I never been before. But yes,
Right. So, how many semesters were online for you?
I had 2 semesters. They took away my third semester,
Hmm.
which kind of made me mad and wasn't fair because my first semester I didn't really do good in. Um, so it affected me having chances with internships and everything. And also, my second semester, I did do good, but if I had my third semester, my two last semesters would outshine my first semester on my transcript. So I only had 3 semesters. I mean 2 semesters. I wish we had three, and I wish they broke it down in quarters. So like 3 classes, and then we switch off every quarter. How
Right.
about you?
So, the way my school did it was that we'd have a year of school and then they'd split the year of school in half. The first half would be 3 classes and the second half would be 3 classes. And I had 3/4 of my classes all online. Then the last 1/4, the last quarter of my classes were all hybrid. So I'd have like an hour of school each day and then I'd come back and then have my online classes.
Again, this has been Ryan and Zuri on Online Talks for YR Raw.
We hope that through listening to our conversation today, you were able to learn more about our experiences with online learning. And if you're a high school student doing online learning, that you were able to find comfort in knowing you're not the only one going through this experience. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
This is Tito Williams Gonzalez for your Half Awake News Update for June 9th. In international news, the Keystone XL pipeline project has been terminated after its permit was revoked by the Biden administration in January 2021. According to CNN, the project's initial goal is to transfer oil from tar sands in Alberta, Canada, into the U.S., and it became controversial with climate activists and indigenous groups arguing that it would worsen the climate crisis and environmental issues. After years of controversy towards the oil companies contributing to the pipeline, the developer of the Keystone XL pipeline publicly announced the discontinuation of the project on Wednesday. The announcement marks a victory for the environmentalists in the nation and a step further in the climate fight. In recent news, boxing legend Floyd Mayweather and social media star Logan Paul had their infamous boxing match last Sunday. According to Sportico, the fight drew in about 1 million pay-per-view buys on Showtime, correlating to more than $50 million solely in pay-per-view revenue. The brawl was marked as a huge global social media event with thousands in attendance, both virtually and physically, and the match lasted 8 rounds. Although it had no declared winner, Mayweather was seen as victorious over Logan with a knockout in the 8th round. I'm Tito Williams for Half Awake on YR.
Today, I will be reviewing Mitski's album, Be the Cowboy, released on August 17th, 2018. This album has a total of 14 songs. Every song and lyric in the album has a different meaning behind it. For example, Nobody describes themes of alienation. The album is a definitive statement on the myth of perfection in relationships. Love is a manifold and romance is consuming and breathtaking. Intimacy can be a cycle of toxic stillness. The tone of the songs in the album have a heart-stretching feel. Mitski layers the sharpest tone structure with the rawest lyrics. For example, we're just two slow dancers, last one's out. The album Be the Cowboy has a more outwardly up-tempo beat, but still brings out the same sadness as the most previous releases, Puberty 2 and Retired from Sad New Career in Business. The point of the album isn't to make people cry, but it will. The concept of the album is written around a fictional character created by Mitski. She's the fictional character. A very controlled, icy represent woman who is starting to unravel. Mitski explains in an interview with Genius. She went to say, because women have so little power and showing emotion is seen as weakness, this character clings to any amount of control she can get. The album relates to the problems women have to face in society since they were kids. As women lack the imagination to prove beyond their immediate experience, each song is about the struggles of a woman. Two songs from the album that I heavily relate to are A Pearl and A Washing Machine. In one of the fictional characters is in some type of toxic relationship. And the other one, it relates to the feeling of being tussled around a washing machine, the emotions of being used. The songs are about a fictional character going through different phases, and the lyrics clearly speak volumes about self-identity and vulnerability. Like the fictional character in Mitski's album, we all have our different acts. In conclusion, I will be listening to Mitski tonight and cry. I am Anna G. Valdez for YR Raw Media.
The city of Berkeley is one of the most socioeconomically segregated cities in California. South Berkeley, where I live, has historically been a working-class, low-income community. It's also a community where mainly African American and Latinx people disproportionately lack access to health amenities. In 2018, the city of Berkeley issued a health status report that highlighted information showing that mortality rates for all cardiovascular diseases among African Americans were exponentially higher in comparison to any other race or ethnicity in Berkeley. The same was true for hospitalization rates due to long-term diabetes. Whether it be because of individual determinants or a bigger systemic problem, the fact is that the community of South Berkeley does not get the same amount of access to crucial health necessities as other areas of Berkeley. As a young African American and Latino resident of South Berkeley, I know that this data is not just numbers. It is reflective of the lives of my family, friends, and the people in my community who I have connections with. To alleviate and prevent these stark health disparities, Moving South Berkeley Forward, an environmental and social justice project, focuses their mission on bettering community health and educational equity in South Berkeley. One of the ways the project will achieve this goal is by working on a potential development of green space, providing people with a community garden where they can grow their own healthy food. It will also include a park where families can participate in recreational activities, exercise, and enjoy the outdoors. Furthermore, it will provide the youth and adults of the community a place to learn about environmental topics ranging from gardening techniques, food security, nutrition, and herbal medicine making. This green space will give access to healthy resources that are needed, especially to the ones who don't have the means to afford them in times like these. As a member of this collective, I feel fortunate to be able to be a part of a project to improve problems in my community such as health diseases, environmental injustice, sustainability, climate change, and many more health and environmental related adversities. I'm Daniel Phoenix Perez for your afternoon report on Wire Raw. For this commentary and more, visit yr.media. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Destiny.
Hello, my name is Gersimer. Welcome to the Education Conversation. Today, we'll be talking our hearts out about the education system. It's time to have some real talk. Although, you might be wondering, who are we to talk about the education system?
Both of us are current high school students who face challenges presented by this crippling and outdated system. We say system and not just school in general because it's not one school or one person or one bad teacher. It's systemic, and regardless of the different school cultures across the nation, many students have common criticisms.
According to an article by the Washington Post, Challenge Success, a research-based organization affiliated with Stanford University, quote, 3/4 of high school students and half of middle school students reported often or always feeling stressed by their schoolwork. Now, with this in mind, we'll get into the questions. The first question we have today is, if you were to describe your feelings on the current education system in one word, which word would it be and why?
I guess my one word would be competitive. And I say this because I have so many different things to talk about when it comes to why I feel that the education system is competitive. I just feel in general that the whole, at least in higher education, being middle school, high school, I guess even college too, is that the education system is really only building you to compete with your peers, to get the best grades, who can do, just in general, who can do the best in school. And then there's so much competition when it comes to getting into college, especially just when you get to high school. It feels like the whole focus, at least at my school, everyone around you is just focused on getting A's however they can just to get into college. And I think even part of that is because just getting into colleges these days, like I said, is just super competitive. And it just costs a lot. And sometimes it feels like you just have to get into, I guess, what people consider a great college. You have to be super special and unique. And I feel not everyone can be super special and unique. Not saying that everyone isn't special and unique, because obviously everyone is very special and unique, but not everyone is just I don't know, a track star or this super genius mathematician kind of person. So I just think that my one word would be competitive. What about you?
I agree with a lot of the statements on there. From my experience at school, I say competitive is one. Competitive, it definitely fits. It's definitely one way to describe it. I would just use the word bitter, because I am not fond of school very much. I like learning and stuff, but I dislike the system very much. So very strong feelings on that. And I just believe that I would have used the word bittersweet, but I do believe that the sweetness about school system and friends and all that stuff, it gets outweighed by the bitterness of the system. So I would just use the word bitter to describe it.
Yeah, definitely. So moving on to our second question. What parts of the system do you believe are sort of dusty and need to be touched up?
Dusty, the old furniture, and need to be fixed. Yeah. I think that the system itself is kind of old. Not even the content that we're learning. I think the system of putting all these students in just one class everyone talks about it, and I think I've heard it so many times before, and I'm just kind of repeating it, where it's like you're putting 30 different types of people in one group and kind of forcing them into the same category when they're really different individuals with different interests and stuff. And yeah, sure, there's some skills that person can learn, like social skills and stuff, but not everyone can learn that way, and it's an outdated system. And I think that's definitely the dusty part on the system.
Yeah, no, yeah, I definitely agree that like not everyone can like fit into the same mold, which is just one way of doing school. I think one other thing is like you were talking about like the content, the things that we learn in school. And I definitely agree, just like if we're learning the same things that we were learning like 100 years ago, how does that show that we've like changed? Because society obviously has changed so much over time. Like, for example, I know at my school some alumni now were starting this petition to like have our English department teach books, like different books written by authors from different kinds of backgrounds, because I know like so many books that we were reading are written only primarily by white male authors. And I think it's just so important to reflect like diversity in our system as well, because that is a big part of it. Like, it's definitely, I wish that our schools would reflect the diversity that we have.
Mm-hmm. I do agree. I think my statement also just went into the diversity section, where it was like different types of people. Don't put them into one group and believe that it'll work. The next question is, whenever the topic of education system or students comes up, we tend to associate it with words such as stress or pressure. What do you think is the cause of this stress?
Oh wow, yeah, there's so many causes I can think of, but I guess I'll just address a couple briefly. I think one could just be like other students. Like we just like when you look at like other students like doing things like maybe like they're getting good grades, you just kind of feel like this pressure, like, oh wow, like look at like these other students doing that, like I need to be able to be as good as them. And I think also adding on to that is like maybe some pressure from like parents as well, because obviously like all parents want what's best for their children, and obviously that's a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think sometimes that can lead to a little bit of overkill, with like parents just really pushing their students to learn to the best of their ability, but then that becomes a little bit too much stress and pressure. And then I think just like finally, when you have a lot of like parents and students and just people seeing each other like doing better, and then it just contributes to like a whole sort of like culture. I know like especially at my school, there's just the whole culture is to like do better and just be the best, be like essentially almost perfect. And then I think that is what contributes to a lot of stress and pressure.
Yeah, I agree with all the points that you brought up, parents, peers. I would just like to add in like content, because I do believe that the competitiveness that you mentioned earlier, I think because of the competitiveness, everyone feels this need to be like more and more hardworking in ways like, oh, I am doing 16 different clubs while handling my academics, and I'm also doing these, I don't know, overnight hackathons, and I'm staying up till 2 a.m. finishing finals and all that. I don't know. People are working very hard just to fit into this competitive system for colleges and for careers and all that stuff. And I think that's definitely one very big factor of stress for students.
Yeah, I agree for sure. And so for our final question, if you were able to change anything about the education system, what would you change and why?
Okay, there's a lot of things I would bring up to change. I think one of the things was just the thing that I mentioned earlier, but it's like the system of teaching the same old things like English, math, science, history. How many of those things are actually relevant? Okay, math, we need that. English, we need that. Science, we need it. History, important, right? But in like when we look at it in a broader sense, all of it is important, and then we're stuck like, oh no, but like everything is needed. We need all this stuff. But not everyone needs all that stuff. Once you're done with like the basics, like yeah, I know how to write essays, I know how to write argumentative, and I know how to read, and all that stuff. People should kind of have a little bit of independence where you can just like choose what to do, instead of like, not everyone has to or should have to do calculus, because I know some schools might have the option like, oh, you can do calculus or you can do algebra, but not all schools have that, and people are really just stuck doing these things that may not even help them in the future, and they're just gonna forget it after like their finals. Versus I think I'd just change that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I think one other thing I would add, which I want to change, is not necessarily, I guess, with the system itself, but just with people's mindsets about the system and the way we talk about it. There is like a lot of stereotypes that I've seen or heard about. I guess like I'll just address like one of them, just like things about like the whole like STEM versus humanities things. Like I've had a lot of people ask me like, oh, do you want to do STEM or do you want to do humanities? And then there's always like this subtle implication that like STEM is more prestigious or better or whatever, and just like stereotypes and things like that that drag people down. And it's like just kind of discouraging to hear, and I feel like we should really be like supportive of whatever people want to study. Yeah, kind of like what you said. So yeah, I think what we've talked about, yeah, there's definitely a lot of things we could change, but yeah, we could think about changing. But yeah, so we hope you've enjoyed listening to our experiences and opinions about schools and our learning system today. And hopefully you learned a little bit about some of the challenges students are facing, and we hope that you'll continue to think critically about the system we currently have and not just follow the status quo.
This was Gersimer
and Destiny
on our podcast, The Education Conversation. Thank you for listening.
Bye.
The movie Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn, directed by Kofi Yon, is about comic book villain Harley Quinn making a deal with Roman Sionis to bring back a stolen diamond in exchange for her survival. Harley ends up teaming up with Canary, the Huntress, and Renee Montoya because Harley Quinn no longer has Joker's protection due to their breakup. After publicly exposing her relationship status, she's quickly confronted by enemies holding grievances against Harley for her past actions involving Joker. Birds of Prey goes into the topic of self-worth and the idea of purpose. There's a scene where Harley explained the definition of a Harlequin, the theater character that inspired her name, to Canary. She described a Harlequin as a servant to a master, and how a Harlequin without someone to serve is nothing at all. Here, Harley's referencing her breakup and how she no longer serves Joker. This ties into the ideas that are often pushed onto women, such as being told that a woman's worth comes from serving a man. It's an absurd idea that has been normalized within society, and I strongly believe the film aimed to show the audience an outside perspective about self-worth through Harley. Harley assumed her worth came from Joker, but realized that she was the one behind some of Joker's greatest stunts, and that gave her confidence. It confirmed that her purpose isn't Joker and that she doesn't need to rely on or define her worth based on Joker's presence. In addition to being amazing, the film also serves the purpose to empower viewers through entertainment by emphasizing how admirable Renee Montoya, Canary, the Huntress, and Harley Quinn are because of their independence and ability to combine forces when necessary. The four women fought together against Roman Sionis and dozens of his men with few weapons in order to protect themselves and the diamond. This film breaks gender expectations by portraying Harley as a strong, humorous, educated woman, which is not represented very often within entertainment. A lot of movies with female protagonists tend to still be about men and are typically related to chasing after men. This film is unique because it's about not needing to rely on men, but instead to trust in your own ability. It's easy to forget what you've done successfully, and Birds of Prey serves as a reminder to gain confidence by looking back at all the ways you've been successful. I'm Oshi for Half Awake on YR Raw. For this review and more, visit yrraw.org.
When we listened to music, whether on our phones, the radio, or anywhere online, there was a recording process that had to take place for the track to sound as polished as it does. A singer or rapper doesn't simply step into the booth and have a vocal take that sounds perfect straight out the raw recording. It takes those couple of button clicks to add the autotune and compression and other knickknacks, which I will soon get into. For the past 4 years, I have been recording music on my own, and I continue to learn the little nuances that go into the workflow. I will do my best to explain this all without talking in straight audio gibberish though. The first thing I want to introduce you to is the compressor. As you can probably guess, it compresses the vocal. But what does that mean? To keep it easy to understand, a compressor will make louder signals quieter and quiet signals louder. This way, the dynamics of the recording are normalized, and the singer won't sound too quiet or too loud, even if their singing did change volume in the booth. Here is an example of an uncompressed vocal, which is kinda quiet. Here is an example of a compressed vocal, which is too loud. The next key tool I would like to mention would be the equalizer, or an EQ for short. An EQ is an audio filter that isolates specific frequencies, such as the sub, the bass, the mid-range, or the high-end and treble. You can boost or lower these frequencies to achieve a more sculpted and specific sound. In most vocal recordings, most of the low end is removed and the high end is boosted for added presence and air. Here is an example of a vocal with no EQ. Here is an example of a vocal with an EQ. With these two main devices out the way, the rest are arguably not as important, or at least not as difficult to understand. Autotune will pitch correct your voice. And reverb, or reverberation, is the echo that you hear. There are many other effects and things that you can do to manipulate a vocal recording, but these are the main 4 things that you'll probably find in any audio engineer setup. I hope you were able to understand, or at least pretend you understood, the intricacies that go into recording. Maybe the terms compression and equalization make more sense now versus being just some audio technical jargon. Well, it's been James for Half Awake on YR Raw. For this commentary and more, visit yr.org.
You love plants, but you always seem to kill them somehow. They end up dry and crackly, no matter how hard you try. Well, here's your solution. The Lifeline Humidifier. An affordable, portable room humidifier that will solve every single one of your problems. With 3 humidity settings, there's nothing the Lifeline can't fix. When used with essential oils, the Lifeline has even been known to improve all aspects of a room, including messy decor. Before and after. Turn your dead, neglected plants into healthy and beautiful ones you'll be proud to have in your room. Go get your Lifeline humidifier today. Available in select stores.
Booksmart, directed by Olivia Wilde, follows the story of 2 best friends, Amy, played by Caitlin Dever, and Molly, played by Beanie Feldstein, the day before graduation. In the witty and heartfelt coming-of-age comedy film, Amy and Molly, who had worked to get into top schools, discover that the partiers and slackers had also gotten into similarly ranked or even better schools, but at the same time, they managed to have fun and be carefree teenagers with actual social lives. In an effort to make up for the lost time, Molly and Amy decide to go to a proper high school party before it is too late. The fact that they didn't know the address to the party, however, made for the perfect and entertaining funny film. Olivia Wilde did an excellent job of encapsulating the girls' awkward and naive high school experience through her vivid storytelling. Because it was directed and written by a woman, the characters are portrayed as real without any stereotypes. It makes for relatable content, and the viewers are able to see themselves represented or can sympathize with other characters. Ultimately, it has a modern-day take on the teenage mindset, and I hope this will be an inspiration for more movies to be made like this and more female directors to become popularized. I can confidently recommend this movie for a guaranteed laugh with charming and ambitious characters and development through the entertaining storyline. One example of a comedic moment in the movie that personally made me laugh out loud was when Amy and Molly got into a random pizza delivery man's car to try and get the address to the party. As a disguise, they tied up their hair in a way that looked like a face mask and hadn't thought through the actual safety and logic of the situation. And this is just one of the countless examples that I love in this movie and that make it so fun and exciting. With its balance of unforced comedy and fun content, Booksmart makes for a great feel-good movie, leaving the audience with lasting lessons of acceptance and friendship through the way the characters overcame their fight of who's pulling the weight of their friendship and the overall structural problems. They resolved it after realizing the fight had good intentions and they will always be there for each other, but will have to listen to each other and compromise. I'm Valley Prieto Black for Half Awake on Wire Raw. For this review and more, visit wireraw.com and thank you for listening.